Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is the Reverend Mandy Goheen, and it is my great honor to serve this congregation as its settled minister. Welcome today. It is likely that 100% of the people here are people. Welcome to the people that are here, no matter what brought you here today. Welcome to a space of expanding our knowledge, a space of thoughtful reason, a space where everyone is included on a journey, no matter what you believe or what you don't believe. There is a space for you here today. If you are full of joy and hanging from the rafters, you are welcome here. If you are weary to the bone, you are welcome here. It is our great honor that you made the choice to come out this morning to this space to learn more about what it means to be human. And with that, I'd like us to light a chalice. A chalice is lit in Unitarian Universalist congregations. They're fighting over it. You can. I ask too many people to help sometimes. That's part of our covenant to ask for help when we need it. This is a ritual that is used in congregations and communities where Unitarian Universalists gather all over the world. It is a symbol of marking the beginning of our time together, a time today where we will prioritize our ability to reason and welcome what the mind gives us as facts, and lean into what is natural and lean out of today what is supernatural. So welcome to that time. Please join me in our chalice lighting words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. This is our opening hymn. And I would invite you, if you are comfortable, to rise and greet your neighbor as we play through. It is a very simple hymn. It is from the humanist tradition, as you will acknowledge. And it is really giving us an opportunity to get in touch and build community with one another. So let's greet our neighbors first, and then we will sing through the hymn. How many? Hi, everyone.
This is a waltz, remember, 1, 2, 3.
So it's a waltz. We're gonna introduce it. Our band, our singing trio will introduce the song first, and then please join us, as it's a little bit of an oxymoron, kind of a meditation and a waltz. We'll try but just get yourself moved from it, and we'll sing it repeatedly until we're sick of it. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Everyone, you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Please be seated. It's time for our story for all ages. Anyone young or young at heart who'd like to come forward and see some pictures in a book, I invite you forward. There's one right here. You got it. You got it.
Gracias.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Camille. I'm the Director of Religious Education. Anyone of any age is welcome to come on up and read with me. I think as Reverend Mandy said, we're talking about humanism today and what it is. And a lot of it's about the interconnected web. And I'm going to share a story with you called The Great Kapok Tree. And I think as we read it, you'll understand why I chose this book. So, The Great Kapok Tree, A Tale of the Amazon Rainforest by Lynn Cherry. Oh, thank you.
That's very humanist of you.
Yes, yes, thank you. Two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet, and the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon, the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. "Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home, where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down." A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. "Senor, my hive is this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree. and flower to flower collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another. Does that sound familiar to you? We talk about that a lot, don't we? A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man, "Senor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert." A toucan and a macaw and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. "Senor," squawked the toucan, "you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain." A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear, "Senor, a ruined rainforest means ruined lives, many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree." This is a little tree frog. They're so small that you can fit in the palm of your hand. Tiny, tiny. A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the dappled light and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear, "Senor, the kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner?" Four tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, "Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live?" Do you know? Oxygen. Yes, we need trees and oxygen. Oxygen. And Senor, do you know what trees produce? Oxygen. If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us life. Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, "Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future, and surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends upon what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in a world without trees." Do you want to live in a world without trees? I don't either. A three-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the man first appeared. Only now did she reach the ground. Plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping man, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice. "Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes?" Yeah. It's a sloth that has a little baby. Did you see the little baby face? A child from the Yanomamo tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured in his ear, "Senor, when you awake, please look upon us all with new eyes." The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depended upon the great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were! The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright red light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of their flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound. for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree, and suddenly he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. What do you think? Do you think he's going to keep going? No. He hesitated. Then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. If you will please help me sing the children out.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. It is likely that you've had a week, since everybody sitting here is a person, where things have come up that are either bad or good or in between. It is the practice of this congregation to light candles, to bring forth those joys or concerns so that we might share them in community. I invite you to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern. I'm looking at Steve for just a second. Steve, are you gonna? I'm cueing the music, friend. Oh. We are being human is a guest house, Rumi says. And I think we're going to do the meditation now, Steve. So do you want to say anything about it, or am I putting you on the spot in a strange way? Right, and I'm always switching things up. I am human, so we will take a moment. We will take a moment to work together. Take your time, because people are going to be holding that. I realize I switched the order as soon as I said it. So the reason I was doing it backwards is I had a reason. It seems like a lot of times I'll kind of talk and we'll have a meditation, and then you come and light candles at the end, which I think is wonderful. But the reason that we're lighting the candles is to bring forth our joys and concerns, and to have an opportunity during our meditation today to focus on the needs and concerns of the community, I thought would be a nice twist, and I think we'll get there. I want to point out that music is one of those human adventures that takes us into spaces of deepening and meditation. I want to say that this space can hold what it can hold. And Steve, when you're ready, we'll just sit, and I want to appreciate you for working on the fly. So.
Okay, that's like, take it away.
Take it away, Steve. And I invite you to come forward. Rich, will you help me? And we can light candles of joys and concerns. The Larger Circle by Wendell Berry. We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those who will come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers, whose hands are joined in dance, and the larger circle of all creatures, passing in and out of life, who move also in dance, to music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it, except in fragments. The fragments of joys and concerns that each of you brought forward are only part of this larger community, part of this circle of love, the circle focused on the goodness in people, a circle that is welcoming to theism, but it is not necessarily the ticket to get in the door. A circle that is embracing of human experience and acknowledges science as a way forward, as a way to learn more, and a circle that will reason together and love together, no matter what the joy or concern you bring forward. It is important, and it is a vital part of this community. May it be so. Ooh. You might be a humanist if you're here. I think of humanism and Unitarian Universalism as just like the thing. It is part of the fabric of who we are. It is a space where if you don't have room for God, there is still room for people and still room for you to be together and to do good for the sake of doing good. It's a place where we practice that together, and it is our heredity. This is Heritage Month for Unitarian Universalism, and it is part of our story. Humanism develops from, guess where? Unitarian Universalism. UU ministers and philosophers and thinkers signed all three of the Humanist Manifestos, including the very first one that developed. It's mostly Unitarian lay leaders and ministers. There's this interesting convergence that happens in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I don't understand Minneapolis. I can't wrap my brain around it, but it is this hub of Unitarian Universalism in a really interesting way. And there's a church there. Well, they would never call it a church, excuse me. There is the Unitarian Humanist Assembly there. And in that congregation, I'm trying to work on the words that they would use. But when I spoke there, I'm getting a little too comfortable with religious language. I can hear it. When I spoke there, their service is called assembly. And the thing that they sing out of is called the songbook, not the hymnal. But what was interesting to me in the context of that was that Buddhism was very present, and that when we were singing from the songbook, people said the word God. And I was like, that's interesting. There was still space for both. There was still space for reason. I want to talk about this. This hymnal in particular, and our hymnals of the past, are just steeped in the beauty of humanism, the beauty of acknowledging that people are important and that we have amazing brains to wonder about stuff. But if you look at our sources specifically, the very last one is humanist teaching, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Idolatries of the mind and spirit. So last week we talked about how the printing press kind of changed everything. And that is true in this story as well. The printing press brings Eastern thought into the picture. Specifically, the Buddha saying that we need to get ourselves under control before we start figuring out what God is. And so that's why the space is very open to Buddhism and Buddhist thought. I do want to say that good without God is the prime word for the Humanist Association. There are all kinds of really interesting materials on it. And I must have seen a pamphlet from them at some time, because they have this pamphlet that says, and it's for Unitarian Universalists specifically, it says, "Are you a you humanist?" And I was like, well, yeah, kind of, we all are. I also love a good sense of humor. This was the American Humanist Association's April Fool's joke a couple years ago. Okay, without God. That's more like Unitarian Universal. We're all right. We're not sure. This is the difference, though. This is what I wanted to talk about today. There is definitely a difference. It's all included. We fit in both circles. Many folks in this room would be really comfortable at a humanist meeting, just like many humanists are comfortable in Unitarian Universalist congregations. The big difference between the two is our focus is on freedom, where reason is the primary focus in humanism. They go together, right? They really do. And in this hymnal, again, it says, the next thing it says, grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. A free congregation, we enter into the covenant, promising one another our mutual trust and support. But there's the free part, the freedom part. Early thinkers, early people during this, we were talking about the Radical Reformation, forward a little bit into England, the time of colonization, there's a man named Joseph Priestley. Who here likes fizzy water? Fizzy water. You can thank a Unitarian for that. We invented everything. Remember, I talked about exceptionalism last week, but we did it all. But Joseph Priestley is this amazing scientist, and he's a Christian, but he is working for religious freedom, so much so that his laboratory is burned, and he comes to the United States to become a Unitarian minister. He is part of the foreground, laying the framework for humanism to develop. We have heard of Thomas Paine, I assume, during the period of the Revolution, and he's a really interesting character. He's not quite a Unitarian because he would never ascribe to anything that was called anything, but he is definitely in the background of this development and this understanding that people can be good just because they are. Just because they are. I want to tell a story again. I already made a video of this, but it's worth telling this story. I was in Albuquerque a few weeks ago, and my phone fell out of my pocket in the Uber. It was terrifying, first of all. And I am not somebody, when I walk, I let go of my Catholic roots. I'm not a big praying person, but I will do a mantra sometimes in my brain. And I realized very quickly that I didn't have my phone because I didn't have my boarding passes. I didn't have any of the things I needed. So I just kept saying, I will not freak out. I will not freak out. I will stay calm. I will not panic. And I just kept going through that over and over and over again. I stood outside in case the guy came back by that had my phone in the back of his truck. And I eventually had to go in. I had to get paper boarding passes printed out. Everything's on my phone. I panicked because I didn't know how to tell time or get to my plane without my phone. And I kept saying, I will not panic. I will not panic. I will not panic. I finally get myself together enough. I realize that coffee is just as important as the phone. And I go and get myself a cup of coffee, and I sit down and I get my brain together, and I do find my phone app on my iPad, which says my phone is right next to me, which is not true because I know it is not. And right when I calmed all the way down, Amanda Goshen, please come to gate 10. They never say my name right. And my phone was there. And my phone was there because people are good. And it affirmed that. Because the next people that rode in that Uber Lyft thingy found my phone. And they took it to the gate. But the story got better. We seldom times get the opportunity to thank people who are good to us. It got better because I get on the airplane and I'm boarding, and I'm pretty noticeable, I will admit. My hair was much brighter that week. And the couple said, "Are you the person who lost your phone?" And I was like, "Yes." And they said, "We found it in the Uber and we brought it to the Delta counter." And I got to say thank you. And if we learn anything from humanism, we learn that saying thank you is vitally important if we believe in good. We can't just assume people are going to be good to our benefit. We have to participate in that. We have to thank people. We have to be grateful for that. We are a people who embrace freedom of religion in this context, and we have created a space where more spiritual language is coming back into Unitarian Universalism. And I know, and I want to acknowledge that that's hard sometimes for people. I know that it grates us to pray sometimes, and it makes us feel weird because part of the congregational development in Unitarian Universalism is rejection of religious language. It's actually kind of part of our tradition. And for me to not be able to, and me to be this new generation of minister who's kind of bringing those back, can be very uncomfortable. But we're in a space where we can acknowledge that I have good intentions about that. I'm not trying to make people miserable. I might be trying to make you a little uncomfortable. I might be trying to challenge you because I believe in good. And I believe that the reason humanists come to Unitarian Universalist congregations is because it's a space, like I keep saying, to practice being decent humans to each other. And I want to give us the opportunity that we start saying thank you. I've been talking about trolls for a while, too, and trolling in our history. And there have definitely been some situations where humanists and people have gotten into uncomfortable conversations, quite frankly, about the word God. It is a hard word for people who have experienced trauma. It's a hard word for people who have left churches where they've felt that the dogma has dictated that they were bad, that they were initially bad. And I want to lift up that humanism really, really holds deeply that concept of enlightenment, that concept of pushing back against Calvinism, and the concept of pushing back against original sin, that we are inherently bad, and it flips that on the other side. And it was very radical to say that we were inherently good. It is risky, in fact, to think that people are good just for the sake of being good. It takes even maybe more faith to believe that than it would take faith to believe in a dogma or a prescribed way of feeling. The concept of reason, the idea that each of you in a congregation, in a group of people together, each have an individual, and I'm going to use the word obligation, to use reason in your own development of who you are and what you believe. I recently saw, there's a UU Humanist Association. It used to be the Humanist, but that's getting a little cheesy, so they backed off of that a little bit. And when I got on their website, I was a little surprised. And I was a little surprised that they had a free thinker welcoming program. And I was like, by the way, Pride's happening on the other side of town. So I had this, we think of welcoming as specifically to, it's code for you're welcome if you're queer, right? We think of that, and that's historical use of words. But this is welcoming people for free thought. And I thought, with my reasoning, is that reasonable? But here you can think that, right? So spiral. Being a free thinker means that you hold deep the process of science, the scientific method. And the people who are writing the original Humanist Manifesto actually believe pretty deeply that this is the new religion. This is how everyone is going to change. As people are learning more and reading more books, they have the assumption that humanism is going to be the jam. They also didn't think about naming it humanism. I listened to Reverend David Breeden. He has a great YouTube videos about humanism and the history. And one of his YouTube videos is, why do you have such a silly name? Because it sounds like you're kind of worshiping humans, right? But it's really that you're focused on the good and what reason brings you. And now in humanism, they are admitting and talking about having discussions about when the scientific method lets them down. When there are things that are too big to explain. Now, humanism doesn't reject things that are too big to explain. It welcomes a sense of awe and wonder in nature. And that's where we get the word naturalism. And I want to say that naturalism is here, and they're proposing that supernaturalism is the opposite. And in naturalism, in nature, when you're standing looking up that capo tree, or also they would reject that those animals talk to that guy asleep under the tree. I was thinking that while she was telling the story. Humanists would never believe that animals talk to you. Anyway, so I was just thinking about like that balance of supernaturalism versus naturalism, and how in Unitarian Universalism we have opportunities for both, and we have opportunities to translate that actual brain chemical physiological reaction that makes us feel awe in however we want. One of my most spiritual moments of my whole life was in New Mexico. Not this last trip, but many years ago. And I was out looking on the ground hunting for rocks. And we were hunting for Apache tears. And I get into this big canyon, and I notice that I am by myself. And I notice the silence. And that feeling of awe from nature was intense. Has anybody had an experience in nature intense? Yeah, I see a lot of nodding. And it doesn't have to be in some magical canyon. It can be in your yard pulling weeds. It can be on a walk next to the river looking at the tangles of wisteria and contemplating their damage and their danger and their beauty and all those things together. It doesn't have to be something that you are given by some deity, a privilege. It is you. It is your chemicals, it is your brain, it is who you are and how you're thinking of these things. Now there are space for expanding that, and humanism is giving opportunity for that. There is space for expanding our understanding of the scientific method. I think when I talk about what happens after we die, I really go to humanism. I'm a pretty spiritual during the week person, but when I think about what happens after I die, my humanism actually grounds me and comforts me in a way that some fantastical story doesn't. I don't need the idea of heaven. That's almost not comforting because I'm not sure they're going to let me in. Anyway. But the idea that the scientific method is true and there's no way to destroy matter, and some of me is still here, in my memories and in the stories and in the earth. One time we were driving past a cemetery, and one of my kids said in the back, "Mom, do your bones go to do your skin?" No, I remember. Mom, does your skin go to heaven? And I was like, I don't know. Say more about that, because I'm not quite sure where we're going. And he's like, well, does your skin go to heaven? Is that what goes to heaven? I was like, no. He said, well, what happens to it? He assumed because there were skeletons in the graveyard that her skin goes to heaven. I don't. And you know what my answer to my child was? Oh, you know the compost pile in the backyard? That's what happens. And he went, okay. And that was the end of the conversation. Having spiritual experiences is wonderful. Being a person who meditates or leans into awe is not mutually exclusive for people who have dogma or belief in something that is what would be termed supernatural. We have access to that because our bodies are that amazing. I was talking about Socrates a while back, and I have a quote somewhere in this pile of humanism on my, here we go. Socrates says, "About the gods I am able to know neither that they exist, nor that they do not exist, nor of what kind they are in form. For many things prevent me from knowing this. It's obscurity and brevity of man's life that teaches me." Take some time this week to say thank you. When you recognize people being good around you, even if it's simply someone looking your way, give them a smile. Acknowledge the good in people, specifically the hard people to like sometimes. That's the rough one, right? Use it as a practice. Take acknowledging human good on as a tool. Who knows what that practice will bring you close to, but I bet it will bring you some joy, and I bet it might lead to some awe and some wonderful feelings and some knowledge that deep, deep down we are all good and precious, at least to each other. May it be so. Speaking of good and precious, it is Pride Month. And I would like to invite M forward to share our social justice moment with us. Yeah. Free mom hugs. Anybody need one?
Anybody want a mom hug? I'm M. Wagner. My pronouns are she and they. And happy Pride Festival Day. I hope that we're all going to be there later. I know I will be. And I wrote this whole thing about one of my favorite people and about one of my favorite queer women, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to look at it because I'm so excited to tell you guys about her. Her name is Ruth Coker Burks. I always forget her last name. She's a 64-year-old woman, and she lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And she's known as the Cemetery Angel. In 1982, she was visiting a friend who had cancer, and she was in the hospital. And she noticed that the nurses were afraid to go into this one room in particular. And she came to find out, see, in the early 80s, before we had AIDS, it was called GRID, gay-related immunodeficiency. And she came to find out that this young man who was in there, his name was Jimmy, had GRID, and he was dying. She went in there to spend time with him, and his last wish was that he wanted to see his mom. And Ruth said, okay, I'm gonna call her. Called her. Mom refused to come see him, said she wasn't gonna claim his body, didn't want anything to do with him, nothing. So she sat with that young man for the last 18 hours of his life, and then she ended up having him cremated, which was really difficult to find a crematory or a funeral that wanted to do anything with him because of all the unknown about AIDS at the time. She had him cremated and had his cremains buried in her own father's plot. From there, she found out that that was not an exceptional case. That was happening all of the time. And as a queer woman, she was appalled to see her gay brothers suffering in this way. And it is hard to talk about like how many people she ended up helping, but it's in the hundreds. And she took over palliative care for young men who were dying from HIV and AIDS. She became well known in the Clinton administration as an AIDS expert. She ended up being an advisor. She worked with one specific funeral home in Hot Springs and purchased over 250 plots in a cemetery in Hot Springs where she could safely bury these young men who were passing away from HIV and AIDS. She is, in my opinion, one of the greatest, I don't know what the word is. Heroes. Embodies humanism, embodies solidarity and justice and love for humans. And if she's not, I think she would make a really great UU. And so I think today, of all days, it is really great and important to highlight the love and solidarity within the queer community and how we can care for each other. Even if your struggle doesn't look like mine, I can make it mine. And that's it. Oh, and she's still alive. She's awesome.
Thank you so much. I didn't know about her, so see? I love when we hear a good story about a Southerner who's doing justice. Makes me pretty happy. Makes me pretty happy. So, as we think about our offertory today, think about what this place has done for people who needed a center in their humanism over the years. How many years this place has created a space where people could come together and learn about how good the world can be together, to be committed to justice and reason in a way that builds community. You have to be a good, critical, reasonable thinker to cook as well as all these folks cook around here. To follow every recipe, to think, oh, so-and-so needs gluten-free food, or so-and-so is vegan, and open yourself to new things and new experiences about the good in each other. And when we support this place with our financial contributions, we're supporting the legacy of humanism, the legacy of where we are going next, so that there's always a place where people who are hurt by theism or deism or whatever have a place to come and recenter when they have a need for congregational community, a need to be taken care of. It is something special, the way we take care of each other around here. And it's so special, in fact, that you take a moment to think about your offering today. Do you have money to spare, to be generous with today? Is this a day that maybe the purse strings are a little tight? There is room for all of that here. There's room to let the offering plate pass you by if you desire. There's room for you here because there's a belief in the goodness of each of you. And with that, the offering will be gratefully received. Thank you, Steve. That was amazing. Please join me in our offertory response. We give these gifts freely, committed to our mission to care, create beloved community, awaken hearts and minds, resist injustice and act with compassion, embrace life and care for the earth. To this work, we dedicate our offerings. That's pretty humanist right there. That is a very open invitation into creating beloved community. So thank you. And thank you for all that you have given to us today. Closing song. Christian, do you have anything to add or tell us exciting about this song?
Just asking my co-inspirators to come forward again. While we're still looking for a name for Frank and Rich.
I like co-conspirators. I like it. I think it's
and Nikki.
appropriate.
Thank
Look
you.
at this crew. Oh,
see.
See, you named it something cool
Exactly.
and more people joined.
See, some people join us spontaneously, so today's your day if you always wanted to be up front here with this cool group.
You get to be a co-conspirator.
So the song is called Love Will Guide Us, and Rich and I will introduce it first instrumental, and then we're gonna just ask all of you to join in, and we welcome you just to stand up because music has to go through the feet, and you gotta be on your feet for that. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, we lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Home inside us. We lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night, through the hard night, through the hard night.
Nice. Woo! Thank you. Please be seated. A stained glass humanist window. Before I give you the so what, I want to tell you that in Unitarian Universalist congregations across Tennessee today and other churches, our love is asking us to hold a moment of silence. This weekend was the grand opening of the new Smith & Wesson plant in Maryville, Tennessee. A plant where the children on the nearby school playground can hear target practice in the firing range. A place that has been moved from Massachusetts, where it was for 150 years, Because why was it moved? They're restricting and putting more limits, and they have some common sense gun laws there. And they have specifically moved to Tennessee because we are a more friendly environment for them to be in. Yesterday, they had their grand opening festivities. And all the clergy that gathered to figure out what to do felt that it was unwise to gather to protest there and left them be. And instead, I'm running my mouth today and opening us all up to sit in a moment of silence for whatever reason you need in response to that factory opening in our state. Please join me. Thank you. Our very first principle in Unitarian Universalism is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This is not only about me believing in the inherent worth and dignity of the people who I might not get along, I might not agree with, like Smith and Wesson. It's about that, but also keeping that humanist teaching in line with people are good, and that I have the agency to be a good person in the world, and that I need to treat myself well too. I have inherent worth and dignity, and when I remember I have inherent worth and dignity, and I remember the people who are working in that factory have inherent worth and dignity, and remember the people all around me have that, I can come to justice from a space of love and thoughtful action instead of reaction. If we had gathered yesterday there may have been some reactiveness that wouldn't move our cause along. There may have been reactiveness, but we can react. We can, once again, send a little love note to Governor Lee. We can work on common sense gun laws in Tennessee. Excuse me. I want to say something else that's been on my mind. Pride is inside today. For the first time, Pride is in the convention center. There is a reason for that. People's freedom of expression is being squashed a little bit, and I would venture a guess to say that it's not safe to be outside. If we are lightening up our laws on concealed carry and on guns, and at the same time exposing trans youth and limiting medical care for people who need it, there is a message coming to extremists that we need to be thoughtful about and we need to be safe about. And if we are allies, if we are people who believe in the good in queer people and people carrying guns, and queer people carrying guns, I guess that would be together too, but we need to really lean into that good, and we need to remind ourselves consistently that we have enough inherent worth and dignity to be allies for ourselves and the world no matter what. And so I urge you to take the democratic process to heart this week and send a note to whoever, for whatever reason, if it is to support medical care for youth in Tennessee, if it is to restrict access to guns. There is so much we need to do to lean into love, and it is hard to think of all the good in the world. So we're going to say thank you. but we're also going to send our love to other people. Who knows if it is one of our emails, one of our phone calls, one of the things that who knows if you're the one person that reaches out to that politician, to that lobbyist, that makes them fall on their knees and change their heart. It could be you. So never forget that the power of love is strong and we are not helpless. That was a little sad, but so what? That's my so what today. Oh, did we not extinguish? I skipped the chalice extinguishing, apparently. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing. Who knows the words by heart? You know the words by heart? Okay, Steve? We extinguish this flame. Oh, we do have it. Oh, shoot. I was like, I believe in love. Yay. Okay, we extinguish this flame, but keep the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. Thank you all so much. I want to remind you that on Tuesday evening, we will be doing a little mindfulness gathering here called Sitting Through Traffic, not in traffic. That's different. It did so much for me last week. I usually get home kind of flustered and not ready to lean into family stuff that can be kind of flustering. And it just really set my week really nicely. So I'd love for you to come. We're looking through a book by Pema Chodron about meditation. It's a very simple book. And we're using the annoying sound of traffic to let our thoughts go down the road. So you're all welcome to come and do that. We have a pumpkin carving party. Also, I think it's really important that you start working on your Halloween costumes. You will be welcome to dress up the last Sunday of this month and wear your costumes to church. There might be a contest or a parade. Who knows? But we're going to lean into some of that joy. Next week, Reverend Pam and Camille are doing a service about prayer. Is that right?
It's multi-generational.
Multi-generational. It's all ages. And then the week after, we are going to talk. We're going to have our own little Pride Sunday here, and I'm going to talk about the history of being a welcoming congregation both here and in Unitarian Universalism, and tell a silly story about me not knowing what welcoming meant. So that's all coming up. Let's see what else. Oh, I don't know, all the things. So does anybody have an announcement that they would like to share? Come on up. Say your name. State your name and business. That sounds very... Line up, everyone who has...
Hi, I'm Leslie Brock.
Is that on?
I don't know. Hello, hello.
Yes.
Yep, there it is. Okay. I'm Leslie Brock, and I'm helping to organize the rummage sale this year. Starting on the 15th after church, bring your treasures that you no longer want, and we'll get everything setting up. We'll be setting up that throughout that week, so if anybody's got a couple hours, like during the day when the church is open, to help sort and price and things like that, that'd be great. There is a sign-up sheet out in the fellowship area. And then also on the 21st, which is the day that we're going to have it, we'll open the doors about 8 o'clock, probably about 8 to 1. So if anybody can volunteer anytime during those hours, and then we'll just pack it up and the leftovers and make it go away.
Do they need to put a price on their items?
Nah.
Everything must go.
Yep.
I was thinking about what a magnificent rummage sale this will be, considering that we've been waiting for 4 years with all our stuff piling up in our basements since the last one, and I assume there will be great treasures.
Oh, there's
always
we
great
have the
treasures.
best stuff.
We do.
What are you guys going to do with the money?
What are we going to do with the money?
It just goes into the general fund, as far as I know.
Ah, it's a fundraiser. So there, thank you, Christian. So yes, it's a fundraiser. So both by donating and shopping, you are supporting the work of this congregation. Thank you.
Tell all your neighbors to come to the bride.
Bring a
Yes.
friend. I have some. I found clay marbles, old-fashioned, and they weren't even in our yard sale. I have this little tin of clay marble. I don't have them. I gave them to Mandy Callie as a going-away present. But they were cute. They were in a wig wax. If these are yours, I'm sorry. They were in a wig wax container and like colonial clay marbles. So who knows what you'll find in a wig wax container?
This is true. I've always been a big proponent, instead of doing all of the fundraising within the congregation, get our hands out of our pockets and into theirs.
Everyone loves a rummage sale.
Hello, it's me again, Reverend Pam Johnson, she, her. On Sunday afternoon, the 22nd, I'll be leading the first session of a group of 5 classes on an introduction to the Hebrew Scriptures, where we look at the Bible literally rather than literally. And so I invite you to attend that. I've got an extra copy of the book with me today if you're interested.
Anybody else have a great announcement? So there's going to be a crafters trick or